I suppose in line with that, we've got diagnostics that we do, with the caveat that a diagnostic is just a diagnostic. It doesn't it tells you lots of stuff, but then what? How does it thread through? How does that then ignite change in the person that you're working with? So it's just a starting point. It's not a labeling.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Rexhen, and today's guest is Nicholas McKie. He is an international executive coach, educational leader, and founder of Pursue LTD, an award-winning coaching company driving sustainable change through leadership development and coaching culture. With over 20 years of global experience across 4 continents as teacher, principal, inspector, and associate professor, Nicholas brings a rare blend of academic rigor, musical creativity, and executive insight to his work with leaders and teams. He is a professional certified coach with the ICF, a certified practitioner in systematic coaching and physical intelligence, and the author of All Ways Coaching, a practical guide to embedding coaching into educational systems. As host of the Inspiring Voices podcast and champion of human-centered leadership, Nicholas helps individuals and organizations unlock performance through presence, purpose, and practice. And it's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Nick.
How you doing, Rexhen? Good to join you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for coming. I wanna learn a little bit more about when it comes to you starting your coaching business. What inspired you to become a coach and then start your coaching business?
Good question. Seems like a long time ago now, Rexhen, actually. But if I can look back that far, as you mentioned, a lot of my career, first of all, as a professional musician and working with a lot of students, performance and also teaching, and then went into the education sector. I taught in China, I taught in Japan, Egypt, the US, as well as the UK, lots of different settings. And I was always really interested in people development. So whether that was students, whether that was through music, whether that was staff, colleagues, whether that was through empowering performance through institutions, whether that was for teacher training, that was the kind of gist of what I was really really liked and was enthused by. And I found myself, my last post was in the US, and I was leading a school. And I just got to the stage where I thought, I think we can do better here in terms of developing people in education. So that's when I first did my first coaching diploma in the US, came back to the UK, started my business. Although we work with schools and education institutions and leaders, and mostly in the education sector, we're also now working in professional sports in the UK, and also a little bit in the corporate sector, because people are people, organisations are organisations, and some of the stuff that we do transfers to different sectors. So that's kind of how Pursue was born nearly 10 years ago now, and it's been a hell of a ride, ups and downs as with every business, and we've learnt a lot along the way. And I've got a fantastic team who work for Pursue, and what we're really passionate about is bringing the best thinking into lots of different sectors. Mm-hmm. So we want to have people like myself who are kind of retired in a sector, then going back into a sector. We're trying to, what's out there that's going to make a real difference to people, and trying to get that best thinking, that pioneering thinking, if you like, into the stuff that we do with our clients.
And just for the coaches who are listening, and also for me to understand, how would you describe your team structure right now?
So we have associates, and we have a couple of full-time people as well, and it flexes really dependent on need. So when we first started, a lot of the time it was like we were talking to institutions and teams and individuals and saying what we can do for you. Whereas now the starting point is, what's bringing you here, what's currently priority for your development, and we can flex around that. So it may be, as an example, we're working with a big school group or big education group, and some of the issues around the lack of maybe cohesion between the teams. So that'd be a fantastic way to bring in our dialogue work in terms of some of the practices of dialogue, conflict resolution, and some coaching methodology coming through that. So we can look at dialogue practices, about voice, about listening, about suspension, and also different modes of engagement. So when do we need to be in monologue? When do we need to be in discussion, debate, skill conversation? So it's very much around what the person or the client, the team or the institution are looking for, and then we can flex structurally around that.
And right now, when you're going through your coaching journey with a client or with a group of people, which part of that do you find the most rewarding since you started doing this? I believe you still are doing some of the coaching yourself, right?
Yeah, so it's always that, I suppose, that evoking awareness, if you like. So it's always the impact, isn't it?
Mhm.
Having said that, remember when I was first starting coaching, I wanted to try and push things forward to try and get people to develop, to change quickly. And actually, a lot of the transformation, a lot of the things that happen are actually in that session that we have. So it's actually having that nuance of when to actually push somebody, when to actually pull somebody, and also actually try and or stop trying to fix and solve everything. Especially, sometimes in coaching we can be really narrow in terms of this is how we want to set things up. This is a model we're going to use, and we've got 1 hour, and we've got a stopwatch going, and then in that hour we've got to get through everything, and you've got to suddenly have a life-changing transformation. Well, that just doesn't happen. And a lot of the time, I've been coaching thousands of hours now, and I could probably count on the hand people who come to a session or come to an intervention knowing exactly what they want to work on. So generally the presenting issue or challenge is never the real thing that needs looking at. So it's about having that flexibility to actually get out of ourselves and work with the person or the team in ways that are going to challenge and support them in different ways. And off the back of that, it's the things that emerge, which is the gold dust rather than all the things that were potentially planned at the beginning.
And how would you describe the ideal client profile for you? Is it when it comes to these, for example, for executive coaching or for the exec or the leader, is it of a certain industry or a certain demographic, or is actually broad? It's not specific.
That's a good question, Rexhen. And I think the longer we do this, and it's been formally 10 years now that we've been working with leaders, one of the biggest things is commitment. Because, a lot of people sign up for things, but they haven't got the commitment, first of all, to see it through, maybe do the work that they need to do. And they set themselves goals or intentions to do things, and then they don't follow through. So it doesn't matter what sector you're in, what job you are, what country you live in, what language you speak, etc., etc. If those things aren't in place, it's a waste of time. And I think it's having the confidence as a coach, which probably you get with experience, to say, number one, this is what we need to be, not saying what the person needs to do, but these are some of the ground rules that we need to have in place so that I'm not wasting my time, you're not wasting your time or your team's time. And I think the other thing is to really be quite direct when you need to be. So if something isn't potentially working or if someone isn't following through with things, rather than letting it slide and flow and just, I suppose, go in different directions and nothing gets done, is to try and actually have those robust dialogue when it needs to happen. So to answer your question, I think it's more about the type of person and the commitment rather than the context. Because I think, as we spoke before, Rexhen, people are people. There's commonalities between whatever we're doing, whether you're a leader in the automobile sector or the education sector or professional sports. There's leadership is leadership in certain ways. And there's context there, of course, but people are people. So it's around finding the right fit in terms of that commitment. That's going to work rather than actually looking at what the sector is necessarily. Having said that, people also like to see some credibility. That's why they sign up initially, isn't it? So if you've got some experience in a particular sector, they like that because they think that you understand their issues, their challenges as well. So most of our work is in the education sector because of the credibility. But as I said, we bring in people from different sectors, which opens up different clients.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that and clarifying that. Now, for any leader there, like I mentioned, there's some portion of the audience. For any leader listening, how would you describe the engagement of them working with you? Is there a certain program of a certain length? How would you describe that engagement?
You mean like one-to-one?
One-to-one, maybe there's also group coaching, whatever there
Yeah.
is offered.
So I suppose in terms of, we offer a couple of options really. We do the traditional classic one-to-one exec coaching. We do team coaching, and we also do organisational-wide coaching culture awards, which I think you mentioned based on the book that I wrote 4 years ago on how to create coaching cultures in organisations, based on the stuff that I've been doing through my experience. If we look at the one-to-one exec coaching, what we're starting to do more is combination coaching. So say we have an initial, 6, 8 sessions, whatever, then it might be more beneficial for that person to have more than one coach. So they may come with an issue which is quite, sector specific, in which case they want someone with a bit of understanding of that, and maybe they want a certain kind of coach that might be around, sector specific leadership. Mm-hmm. Maybe after a couple of sessions, their context changes. So maybe they'd like a high performance coach from, say, with an Olympic background, how you can have, say, compassionate high performance in different sectors. And then after that, maybe they want someone who's, has got a little bit of a different take. So it could be someone who's, got a different sector experience, completely different to they're expecting, to give them a different challenge from a completely different angle. Mm-hmm. So rather than having one person, say, do that initial set of sessions, they can have a combination of people, which works quite well, and we're getting good feedback on that. I suppose in line with that, we've got diagnostics that we do, with the caveat that a diagnostic is just a diagnostic. It doesn't it tells you lots of stuff, but then what? How does it thread through? How does that then ignite change in the person that you're working with? So it's just a starting point. It's not a labeling. With the teams, something similar. So usually with the team interactions, we'll maybe have some one-to-ones from the team. And again, mm-hmm. diagnostics if that's the case, because sometimes diagnostics can give you something that's tangible, that's not looked at from a line manager or us. This is what it says. It's not threatening. And then we'll have some team sessions. So again, the team's looking at people who have a collective responsibility to deliver something. So looking at the vision, how stakeholders are working, and then the outward-facing relationships. And then through that, some things may come up in terms of, we're having some issues with engaging different stakeholders in our organisation. Well, let's have a 2-hour workshop then on how we can look at that and get somebody in who's got real experience and nous in that. So you've got your one-to-ones and you've got your team, and then workshops coming through the back of it. Could be a traditional way that we do things. And then finally, the Coaching Culture Awards. It's based on the book. So 3 domains, really, if you're looking at organisational wide. You've got your fundamental domain, your systemic domain, and your transformative domain. So the fundamental domain is 2 kind of subdomains, 2 steps, really. The first one is looking at skills, and a lot of that we draw from the International Coach Federation core competencies. And then you look at application. So you're looking at, let's look at some basic models that we can use so we have a one-to-one interaction in a formal sense. So in the fundamental domain, how we can use the skills informally across an organisation, such as the listening, the questioning, paraphrasing, summarising, goal setting, and then in a more formal one-to-one setting. Then the systemic domain is based on individual systemic coaching. So that's looking at different relationship systems, different mappings. Then it's looking at group coaching, which is different to teams. So group coaching is the coaching of individuals in a group setting. So it's individual driven. And then we look at kind of team. So where are the groups in your organisation? Where are the teams? And we also bring a bit of AI in. So we look at chatbots. So we look at, as we know, coaching chatbots can coach just as well, if not better, than novice coaches. So why waste our time doing that when we can maybe outsource and give people support when they need it on demand? And then the transformative domain is looking at dialogue as a mode of practice, which I kind of mentioned previously. So it's looking at dialogue across different practices and how we can talk and think more effectively together through modes of dialogue and modes of interactions. And it's also looking at dialogue with self. So looking at physical intelligence. How can we self-regulate? Breath work, posture, movement, and the research behind that, which is where a lot of the stuff in coaching is going with the rise of AI. So that's 3 domains and 3 awards, if you like, for a whole organisation to engage different stakeholders. But it's a framework based around the organisation's priorities for development. So we don't tell them what to do, but these are frameworks that they can fit around in different interactions.
And there's quite a variety there. When you think about when these clients find you or when you find them, which marketing channel would you say has worked very well for you right now? And this is a question that maybe coaches that are listening might be more interested in.
Yeah, good question, Rexhen. And I think if we're being honest, when we first started, you do your coach training initially. And they usually give you a kind of module or something to say, this is how you market yourself. This is how you build your business. And again, I've never known anyone who suddenly leaves one of those training, then suddenly has got a lucrative business. It's hard work and we make a lot of mistakes. So initially, we put money into advertising, we put money into things like, Facebook, all these kind of social media platforms, which worked up to a point. But the best thing that we can find and we get are recommendations. Because it's human work and it's about people. People trust people. So once you've got a bit of body of work, it's about us getting out there. So people are telling the story for us. And it's always that kind of, I don't know, that balance of us talking about what we do and the impact. But actually the best stuff is our people, the people that we work with, our clients, telling the story for us. So any platform that you can get that allows you to do that, whatever social media platform, focus on a couple that can get people talking about you, we find is always the best way.
And while we're on marketing also, and this might not be related, but looking into your future for your coaching business, do you have any specific goals that you're working towards for like the next 1 to 3 years?
We've always got goals. We've always got development plans, and I think it's just inching our way forward really with things. I think it's always going back to your marketing. The best marketing is doing a good job as well. So it's making sure that you're up to date with the best and the most recent, I suppose, approaches. Because of the rise of AI, coaches who do use basic models are going to get pushed out sooner rather than later. So it's actually, what can you bring to the table? So a lot of the stuff that we're doing is based around being more human. So I mentioned the physical intelligence. I mentioned about getting people working better in teams rather than just the individual. So that's kind of where we're going to go with this kind of the impetus and the approaches that we bring in. And I think really in terms of that growing, it's making it very, I suppose, real and authentic. So it's actually looking at, what's going to make a real impact here. Forget all the shiny stuff, but actually let's get, on the ground, so to speak, and see what's going on in an organization. And I think having a real interest in what's going on, and the more, I do a lot of traveling all around the world, and you can't beat going on the ground to an organization and meeting the different people and everything else involved. It gives you a massive insight into what's going on, and people like that because there's more and more competition. They want people they can trust. So it's finding out the credibility of the people we bring in, but also building that more human-centric approach into what we're doing, but also with the caveat that using AI where we can. So what do we need to use AI for? How can that give us more time to spend it on the pupil side of it?
And right now, or let's say over the last 7 to maybe even 10 years, how, in terms of like investments, what would you say have been some very good investments that you've made in the coaching business that you're proud of? And if any, maybe what have been some investments that you could have preferred to have avoided?
Well, another good question, Rachel. I think, like I was saying earlier, I think we spent money when we didn't need to on things like advertising. I don't know many people in coaching who would see an advert in a magazine or newspaper and would ring them up and trust them straight away. So for us, that's kind of money that we didn't see any comeback, really. It was a waste of time, if we're honest. I think the stuff that has been good is going to conferences. So it's actually, again, going to things that develop us as a company. And also, a lot of the time, it's a little bit like education. If you're a good teacher, then suddenly you get promoted to be a leader. And just because you're a good teacher doesn't mean you're going to be a good leader. And a lot of the time, just because you're a good coach doesn't mean you're going to be a good business owner. So I think a lot of the time, we've found when we've got real good investment and traction is going to things, I suppose, that outside of our comfort zone, that we need to run a business, not just coaching. So yes, let's get good on the coaching. Let's get as good as we can, bring the best approaches. But how are we tracking our impact? Do we have people around us who can help us build the brand? Look at the marketing side. And so those kind of, I suppose, networks and those mastermind groups that we've gone to, looking at how we build a business, doesn't matter if it's a coaching business or whatever business, that's been a real source of good investment for us.
And you mentioned as a bad investment was advertising. And when we say advertising, you were specifically talking about, was it newspapers? Or because I was thinking, when you said advertising, immediately I was thinking, is it Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, or something like that? But you mentioned like actual advertising on like delivery, something like direct marketing kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of business, we have mail list stuff. But again, I think because of the nature of stuff that we do, I don't think I would see an advert in a paper or advert on a Google ad for coaching. But I want to pour my heart out to somebody, or I want to really, who is this person? I don't know them. It could be anyone. It could be a bot. You just don't know. So I think a lot of that stuff for the people stuff, you've got to get that trust over. And I think a lot of the times making it more authentic. So, we've used different ads and stuff to get reach. Just because you get reach doesn't mean you get more clients. It's about getting the right stuff. So rather than going too wide, it's really focusing on actually who are we trying to get here? Which sector are we trying to get? All the recommendations and following those through. Because, it's not the kind of product, I think, coaching or anything people development where you're going to pick up the phone just off seeing someone in a magazine.
Yeah. What about LinkedIn? Have you seen that working well?
We've used that a lot over the years, yeah. And
Mhm.
again, we've used it in terms of, and I think there's over the years it's changed. Obviously, I mean, it's getting a lot more, I suppose, more like Facebook now. We've seen a lot more videos, which is great. I think as a small business owner, you've got to put time to do that, and again, getting people to showcase what you're doing. But also, there's so many, sales navigations and things now which just push out messages very, and then just keep
Mhm.
badgering people, which I think people are pushing back on now and turning off with. So the cold calling is always a tricky one. We do get some over the years. We've had some cold callings, but actually people have got in touch with us because they've seen us with somebody else who they know. So it's the networks of trust and credibility rather than a cold calling message.
So, what would you say is right now for you a challenge that you're trying to solve for next, considering also your goals?
Challenge in terms of the business.
For your coaching business.
Um, I think,
Short-term challenge, let's say.
I think one of the things I think that's growing is everyone's a coach these days.
There's
So
certainly more coaches, yeah.
it's cutting through the noise. And again, it's not just, I think it's every coaching business is thinking the same. It's everyone's shouting on social media.
Mhm.
There's noise everywhere. Everyone's suddenly a coach, whether, a lot of people don't have a coaching background, but they're a coach suddenly and they're an expert in this. There's a lot of noise. So I think for businesses now, it's kind of cut through that noise. And I had a really interesting conversation recently at a business mastermind about people going more local. So actually, rather than trying to get the masses, focusing on actually what's in their locality. Who do they know that can get them into to different spheres, rather than trying to go too wide, where you're going to get lost. There's so much noise around that. So
Mhm.
that's a real, I suppose, something to think about. Just not just for us, but I think a lot of businesses, whether they're coaching or not.
Absolutely. I've noticed this challenge also from other coaches that I've had on the podcast as well. Yeah, standing out as more and more coaches are starting their own businesses, becoming coaches. It's quite a challenge. Obviously, being as authentic as you can would help with that. And because not all coaches that are starting the coaching business are actually coaches that, well, let's just say, might not have the level expertise that you have. For example, there's a differentiation there. So yeah, I feel like as long as you come authentic to the people who are actually listening, either on social media or in every media that you're using, that's actually going to make a difference. You bring a good point that the more the cold messaging or cold calling grows, people are getting more careful about answering to these messages, even if you were to try to do so. You just have to come up and message in an authentic way. So yeah, that is how I've seen it so far. Now, this has been great, but is there any final advice you'd like to give to other coaches, just like yourself, who are looking to scale their impact?
I think it's always coming back in terms of you've got to find things that energize you in the business. Otherwise, what's the point in, why are you doing it? And a lot of the time, people say they talk about scaling, getting bigger and getting bigger, but is that really what you want? And I know there's considerations like the financial side and everything else. Is it your full-time job? Is it a side hustle, etc., etc.? But it's bringing it back to what part of this, why are you doing it? And sometimes bigger isn't always better. So it's
Hmm.
just be as sharp as you can. Be really, really sharp. One thing I like when we're coaching, we always say one step to better. Everyone talks about coaching goals, goal. Everyone's got goals and goals, yes. But as I mentioned before, if you're looking at the research coming out of the effectiveness in coaching, say team coaching, the best stuff is the stuff that wasn't planned for. It's the emergent stuff. So it's good to have a goal and a 5-year plan and everything else, but be flexible within that and keep
Hmm.
coming back to what about this? Why are you doing it? And what about this energizes me? And just keep coming back to that sharpness. Otherwise, you end up doing lots of different things and you're kind of just drowning in different initiatives, different things that you're doing, different marketing campaigns, and you're a bit rudderless. So get
Hmm.
that anchor in terms of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nick. And thanks so much for coming to our podcast today. For anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can go into your LinkedIn, Nicholas McKie. They'll be able to find you there. There's also the website, which is pursue.com. I don't want to confuse people. It's not pursue, it's pursue.com. Not you as the letter U, but you. I'll also put that in the description, because I feel like for anyone who's just audio might be a little bit confusing, but I'll put that on the description as a link so they'll find you. Is there any other way people can find you?
Yeah, so we've got the pursue.com, PRSYU.com is the website. On there, you'll find our Inspiring Voices podcast, which we're revving up again after a couple of years of doing other things. That's on Apple Podcasts, all the usual podcast platforms. We're LinkedIn, Nicholas McKie, MCKIE, and also Pursue on LinkedIn. And we've also got YouTube. So if you look at Pursue on YouTube channel, which we populate now and again with different testimonials, different things as well, you can find some information there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for coming to our podcast.
Thanks for the invite. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.